And I believe Joel Pollack is joining us now from Breitbart. Good morning to you, Joel Pollack.
Good morning. How are you?
Praise be to God, I am alive. Thanks for joining us. We were just going through some of your articles over at Breitbart on the Durham trials. Can you give us sort of the cliff notes of where we're at with this?
Well, today, both sides are going to deliver their closing arguments. And Michael Sussmann is on trial for allegedly lying to the FBI when he said that he was approaching them as a private citizen, sharing information that he had come across, purporting to link then-candidate Donald Trump to Russia via financial transactions through a bank called Alpha Bank. It turned out he was a lawyer for the Clinton campaign, and he actually billed the campaign for several hours of work that day.
Oh, wow.
The prosecutors also were able to produce a text message from Michael Sussmann to his contact at the FBI saying that he was only approaching as a private citizen. Probably in his own mind, Michael Sussmann thought, well, if I do this in my personal capacity, then I'm not putting the campaign on the hook. But of course, he was doing it to benefit the campaign. The plan to leak this allegation of Alpha Bank linking Trump to Russia was discussed within the campaign. And one of the most fascinating facts to emerge from the trial is that Hilary Clinton herself proved the plan to leak the Alpha Bank allegations to the media. What was going on at the time was an effort by Democrats to create a quote-unquote October surprise, the classic revelation in the last stages of a campaign that is supposed to upend the campaign and help its opponents. And the Clinton campaign wanted to release this information, and they did release this information in an effort to damage Donald Trump at the polls. Ultimately, if you look at the timing of all this, they probably justified it to themselves because James Comey, then the director of the FBI, had come out with the information on October 28th, 2016, that he was reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails because of Anthony Weiner's laptop. And the Clinton campaign went wall to wall with the Alpha Bank allegations just a couple of days later. They probably felt like they needed some kind of counterweight to the James Comey announcement, but they had actually been planning it for a long time. It's not like they came up with it after Comey announced he was reopening the Clinton investigation. They had been working on this for a long time, and it was part of a broader effort to smear Trump by linking him to Russia. You have to ask why the Clinton campaign thought this was necessary, because she was so far ahead in the polls for most of 2016. But this was their effort of not leaving anything to chance. And they had been here before, in a sense, because they had lost a close Democratic primary to Barack Obama in 2008. And they wanted to make sure they could remove Trump from competition, essentially, by linking him to Vladimir Putin, who they had belatedly come to regard as the devil. Remember that both Clinton and Obama were very pro-Russia right up until Putin invaded Crimea in 2014, taking them by surprise. But it was Hillary Clinton who pushed the reset button. It was Barack Obama who offered Putin the New START treaty and who offered more nuclear reductions, even though he knew that Russia was already cheating on past treaties. They thought that America was the problem in the relationship between the United States and Russia. They thought George W. Bush had been too mean to old Vladimir Putin, so they were going to try to be nice. Anyway, all of this comes to a head today. The closing arguments will be delivered, and there will be jury deliberations. We may have a verdict by next week. I think Sussmann will be found guilty. It's a process crime. In other words, it's a crime that emerges within the investigation itself about past actions, but it is possible it could lead to future indictments of other people. And it would be a major victory for John Durham because he has had an uphill battle in this trial. There are at least 2 or 3 Clinton donors on the jury, as many as 3 Clinton donors on the jury. There are people with connections to the Clintons and to Michael Sussmann himself that were allowed on the jury, sometimes over the prosecution's objections. The judge also let the defense exclude a lot of evidence about the broader conspiracy, and that was the word the prosecutors used, broader conspiracy by the Clinton campaign to cook up this theory. Nevertheless, Durham still got a lot of the information out there, and the most important pieces of evidence were placed in front of the jury. So I think this trial has been a major milestone. It has justified the special counsel appointment, because we never saw any of this emerge from previous Department of Justice investigations. We never saw anybody point to Hilary Clinton herself as the source of at least part of the Russia collusion hoax. And this trial has produced that evidence, not just from prosecutors, but it came from a defense witness, from Robbie Mook, who was the Clinton campaign manager in 2016. So all in all, a very important trial, and probably heading to a guilty verdict sometime next week.
I was making the point earlier that we, at this point, and maybe you can correct me, but we don't know one way or the other if we haven't been able to prove whether or not Hillary Clinton knew the Steele dossier was fake and or knew that the Sussmann information was suspect and still wanted it leaked to the press.
We don't know what she knew. We do know that there were some Clinton campaign officials who thought it was real. Once it was presented to them, there were some who reacted as if they believed it was a genuine national security threat. But there were people who had reason to know that what they were doing was fraudulent. And that's especially true of Mark Elias, who was the Clinton campaign's lawyer and who arranged for Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm, to create the fraudulent Russia dossier, which was later passed to the FBI and to the media, and which triggered the FBI's surveillance of Trump campaign aide Carter Page. They knew at that level, the people involved in that, Fusion GPS and Mark Elias, they almost certainly knew that what they were doing was not in the realm of fact. They were simply coming up with allegations. They were using completely unreliable sources, conversations at bars, gossip, that sort of thing. And they were trying to stitch together something that maybe they convinced themselves might be true. I mean, anything is possible. I might be able to walk on the moon by sitting in my office, but it's something they had to know was at least highly unlikely. I'm not sure what Hillary Clinton knew or didn't, but certainly there were some officials who testified that they thought some of this information really was a genuine national security concern. Yeah. Still, they ought to have said who they were working for, how the information was obtained. A lot of the FBI agents acted differently once they believed that Michael Sussmann was acting as a private citizen. It had consequences because it meant that he became a protected confidential source. So the FBI couldn't go into the source of his information. They couldn't drill down on it the way they would have if they knew he was just a lawyer from the Clinton campaign.
Well, I guess we can say we definitely know now that whether she knew or not, she definitely approved of the use of this information to her favor and to the detriment of the Trump campaign.
That's right. And there were two articles that came out, one in Slate and one, I believe, in the New York Times. And they both mentioned the Alpha Bank allegations right before voters started going to the polls. All
right. Well, we are out of time. Joel Pollack, Breitbart.com. Thank you so much for your input today. We appreciate you getting us caught up, especially since almost no one else is really talking about this story, given all the other stuff in the headlines. But God bless you, Joel. Have a great day.
God bless to you as well.
All right, that is going to do it for hour number one. If you can join us in the second hour, we'd love to have you. We're going to get caught up with some good news. We have a Saint of the Day, Gospel Day, plus our game show and an after show all coming up. If you can join us, do so. You can always hang out at grnonline.com/CDT. Otherwise, we'll see you back here on Monday morning.